We'll call this meeting to order, please. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call, please.
Trustee Foley,
There.
trustee Lappin.
Here.
Clerk Flavich here. Treasurer Ellery Summers. Here. Trustee Kroll,
Here.
Trustee Reiner.
Excused absence.
Supervisor
Here.
Skibby.
At this point in time, is there any additions, corrections, substitutions to the agenda as bare bones as it is?
I thought we couldn't because Russ wasn't here.
I just going on boilerplating it.
Do you want me to do the roll call?
I'll entertain a motion to adopt the agenda as presented.
So moved.
I have a motion. Do we have support? Support. It's been moved and supported. Further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor of adopting the agenda as presented signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, the same. This leads us to our first opportunity for public comment. If anybody has any public comment, please stand to the podium and state your name for the record. Is there anybody online that has any public comment? If so, please raise your hand or shoot a text. Again, this is the first opportunity for public comment. If there is any public comment, please raise your hand online or stand to the podium here in person. Seeing and hearing none, we'll move to the purpose of the meeting. Fire department. Cash, would you like to take lead or?
Well, I think if, as our fire chief, maybe give us an update on where we're at, if they got.
Sure.
This didn't work out so well last time I was up here, so I apologize. Where we are at right now, I believe, hopefully Chris provided you guys with a tentative schedule for coverage for both stations for the month of July.
We do have that.
Okay, that's for your review and satisfaction. We did try to maintain an even keel as far as how much overtime was being doled out and balanced out with. We really had to use people that were already on staff and qualified to do those shifts. So I do hope that's satisfactory. I think Chris and the guys sat down and did a phenomenal job of trying to pull that over and get it done last minute. So hopefully with your approval of that schedule.
Can I
we'll
ask
get
a
started.
couple questions?
Yes.
Just about the schedule. Just for example, there's a couple spots on here, like Ginter, 7 to 6, 8 to 7. Like on those days, is there someone else to cover it?
Yes.
Cover it? But those aren't on here.
Right. Well, what we're doing is because we have an instance where there are several people who, for instance, might work at the readiness base
Mhm.
or work for Alcona EMS or something that are trying to help us out and it just so happens that their shift ends when they're supposed to be here.
Right.
So we've asked those people that are on duty then would it be possible to stay over 15 minutes, a half an hour, 45 minutes until, say, like Mr. Wilson can get here from CRTC to start that shift.
So wouldn't there be 2 people then for,
Like Ginter, it says, I'm assuming it's 8 in the morning till 7 at night. Because it says 8
No,
to 7.
till 7 the next morning. The shifts are supposed to run 7 to 7, but if he's going to be an hour late getting in, we just wanted to, and I'm sorry for that confusion, but we wanted to indicate to you guys that we did have somebody holding over, but that person was indeed
So
not
Luke would be
starting.
holding over.
Yes.
Okay.
okay, all right,
Right.
well, that helps answer the question. Okay. And then your 8-hour shifts, are you still working like Monday through Friday, 8-hour shifts, or are you?
Well, and another purpose behind this schedule is because you'll see I'm only on a couple days. Also, that was one of the goals in July, was to get me back on an 8-hour rotation as opposed to covering shifts, so that I could really tend more to the administrative business of the department. But yes, my intent is to, I have been in the past couple of weeks. I think if you go back on the payroll, that I've been trying to smatter 8-hour shifts in between the 24s and 48s.
Thank you for that clarification.
Mr. Foley?
Are these covering both stations?
Yes, north and south. If you see on there where there's two names, traditionally, the top name is the north station, bottom name is south. So,
In your, are some of these in military time and some in regular time?
yes, and again, my apologies for the chicken scratch, but I have people that can attest to our printer at the most advantageous time yesterday morning took a dump on us, so we had to handwrite a bunch of notes in there. So
All right, so yours is 700 hours to 1900 hours and then
Correct.
1900 to 7. Okay.
correct. Any more questions on the schedule? Yes.
Maybe it's not necessarily, well, it's actually not the schedule. I just had another question. Perhaps you'll get to it. I'll hold off.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I have one more question. These
Yeah.
are 24-hour shifts.
They are. And you'll see in there also because of and I know that's one of the things that people are concerned about, is the shortage of personnel right now. People are working some 48s. But when we sat down to do this, one of the goals was to keep people to a maximum, so that we weren't working 3-4 days in a row. With some of these guys, we tried to split it up so nobody would have any more than a 48. So.
I'm sorry. I just have one other question too. So there are, I see 3, Wilson's helping us out, and I see Tolan and Ginter on here. We do have other people too on the paid on call roster. Have those people, any of them come forward and said, hey, you can plug me in a day here, a day there?
Well, yeah, to be quite honest with the board, they have come forward and they have expressed an interest, but again, we're balancing, do they have the qualifications that were set forth prior to pull those 24-hour shifts? And basically, quite honestly, a couple people, they're more than ecstatic to come back, but they're kind of waiting to see what comes out of the meeting today as far as what's going to be acceptable for who we staff and how. But yeah, I've actually had 3 of our paid on calls have contacted me and said they would be interested in helping out, if there's no problem with that. And I would reserve names and dates and times, everything, for a personnel committee meeting, but I have had a couple people from another fire department express willingness in either helping out and or applying when the time comes, if that's acceptable.
My question is, with our licensure as it is right now today,
Yes.
we need a firefighter EMT.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, and because we stepped down from transport to non-transport, we no longer have to do the dual
We don't have
dispatch
to
out of
send
both
2 people.
stations. It's acceptable from the state of Michigan for us to respond with, say, an apparatus and a 1 person to that call until the ALS crew gets there from the city.
Yes, Dave, I have one question. I take it because of the last schedule I had seen and the last conversation that we had, that Mr. Benedict was still to be mentored. Obviously, that is not moving forward.
Well, I would put out to the board, I will just say this, and we can go into the detail or whatever, but my recommendation at this point would be to clear him to work those shifts by himself. So,
Has he been working shifts by himself?
no, I've been, either myself or Chris has been with him. So at this point, he's been whether by cadet or part-time or full-time, has been a member of the department for over 3 years. He knows the apparatus inside and out, and he has met all of our qualifications for the 24-hour full-time shifts as far as his proficiencies. So. And yes, thanks for pointing that out, Supervisor Skibby, but yeah, that this schedule also is tentative on the fact that we are able to clear Matt and let him work and as a full-time firefighter unsupervised. So, yes.
So we have discussed before, but like if there's any trading of shifts, that'll be documented or noted, the clerk would be notified of that, or the supervisor, or
Yeah,
Just
what
so-
direct, from a directive standpoint, I had put that on the board down at the Southside Station, that from now on, all trade time is supposed to be documented and tracked. If it's your wishes that you guys want to be notified of that prior, because the trades are being made prior, so that you don't have to call up and ask, I'll make sure that's done. So that way you're not guessing who's on duty and. Anything else on the schedule?
No, I think, so we also did a letter of agreement with the union. Extended that to September 30th. Allowing yourself to pay on call to cover shifts.
We need to vote on that.
We need
Yeah.
to take a vote on that,
We
yeah.
can Take a motion. to vote.
Before, is there anything else to your update?
Well, I have a lot for that. That pertains specifically to the schedule. I have some other items. Would you like me to roll through those before?
Might as well.
Okay. I had on here just to note, I know this was spoken about, but again, a recommendation as far as being department head, it's not going to be any huge news to anybody, but we do need to pursue that hiring process and get these people staffed up as soon as possible. We indefinitely can cover. I don't think we can cover indefinitely. To borrow a phrase, I think it was phenomenal that we were even able to come up and be able to provide the coverage. And again, I know that's a concern of people, and we certainly can address that a little bit further in the meeting. But again, my recommendation for the people we have already interviewed, made contact with. I've spoken with Chris, and I know he's spoken with Michelle. We want to revamp those contacts we had in place prior to this happening, as far as trying to do some recruitment from the colleges that hold academies, professional unions like the Michigan Professional Firefighter Union, any of those places where we can get the word out that we're hiring. Get that on track. So, and again, something for you guys to digest and think about. Will probably have to come out of a personnel committee, or if you want to do that today, and regardless of how we do this staffing.
Mr. Muggy, unfortunately,
forward.
that door has to remain open. Oh, yeah, I'll take care of it.
No problem. No matter how we decide to go forward, whether we're going to restructure, reimagine, whatever, for this to work minimally, because it was conceived as a combination department, which is quite different than entirely full-time, I am going to need a minimum of 2 officers to assist me in command functions and stuff. So please just keep that in mind as we're moving forward. So part of our impromptu sit down yesterday, as far as myself and some of the senior paid on calls and staff, as we all agree, is that we absolutely can't slow down right now. We need to move forward in the hiring, staffing, training, and ongoing recruitment for both paid on calls and full-time. And we intend to pursue that. So A huge part of that is going to be to restore the paid on-call roster, so to speak, to its former glory. That's going to be a number one. I also want you guys to, as we're moving forward quickly here, we had talked about the ambulances and their role in the mission of the department since it's changed. I certainly am open to any and all suggestions, but please let's pursue that. And I believe that making a decision on that will help us go forward as to how we're going to adequately provide apparatus for the fire department in the future. So also high on the priority list, of course, is to finish getting engine 1 in service. We do intend to have what we refer to as a work party in the next day or two to finish getting that unloaded. I have contacted the state yesterday, and I spoke with them again today as far as updating the licensure of that apparatus, and as far as that being a basic life support non-transporting apparatus, although it is a fire engine. That's how engine 1 was licensed, and that's how engine 2 is licensed. Just for your information, engine 3 is licensed, but as a medical first responder unit, not a basic life support. And there's just a little bit of a difference there. So,
Which leads to a question I think that would probably eventually be, what is the differences in licensures between BLS non-transport and MFR?
basically in the amount and type of equipment that we carry on those apparatus, and a minimum equipment list that the state needs to see as far as what we're carrying on. And what we're trying to avoid here is because the purpose of engine 3, actually, although it's stood up right now, is to be a reserve engine. Bear in mind that we're taking a BLS engine out of service when we're moving an MFR engine up. So that kind of, it's not a huge deal, but it is a technicality on is that we are not carrying quite as much equipment on engine 3 as we would be on engine 1 and engine 2. And that has to do with things like backboards and some of the medications that we're required to carry as a BLS that EMTs are allowed to do in the field. So.
Can I ask how many, and maybe I just didn't hear it. Since the board meeting, I assume that either you have reached out or someone has reached out or people have reached in that are paid on call to determine how many people are going to step back into their roles.
Well, yeah, quite simply, what I can tell you is that as far as the paid on calls, I believe the number right now is 16. And we're all painfully aware that there have been some people that have kind of stepped back from that since this all spun up in November. As I said, I have 3 that have outright contacted me and said, yeah, we'll be happy to come back.
I think that's probably more my question. If I'm hearing what you're saying, you have 16 paid on call that would be on the roster. But I want to know what the paid on call active would currently be. And it's basically 3.
Active?
Yeah, those people that have are going to step back into their role. Maybe I'm not making myself clear.
I
Could
guess
be
I
the
understand what
language.
you're saying. I mean, I have a roster of paid on call in front of me.
Okay,
There are 19 people that are paid on calls on my roster.
right.
4 of those people I consider inactive because they haven't done anything since 2019. So I'm
Correct.
showing 15 people that we have active, but some of them, it's been months since they've been on. So of those people who haven't been responding to calls in months, how many of those are gonna come back so that we truly know.
So the board is aware, my intention is to contact those people that have not been participating, because both by state training standards and by previous bylaws from past that were published by the department that require them to make a certain percentage of calls and or trainings if they have not fulfilled those. The first step under those guidelines is to inform them they've been placed on probation and can no longer respond until they've met the minimum training standards, and or simply inform them that, as a member of this fire department, there are minimum expectations. If you're not going to perform those, please let us know. Thanks for what you've done, but turn your things in. We need to move forward.
Okay,
So
but,
that's my intent. But as far as I guess I'm kind of looking at.
So let me rephrase it again. When the ad hoc committee was in place, there was a point in which we wanted to send out letters.
The letter.
And so I'm assuming that ultimately that letter went out.
Yes.
And those letters were basically, as I recall, we were going to try to do 3 letters, but for sure 2. One was to thank those people for their efforts and to encourage them to keep going. And the second letter was to find out those people that Michelle had just mentioned about being sort of months without any activity. What are your intentions? And so I just wonder what the outcome of those letters were. Was there a lack of response? Was there response? What ended up with that?
Yeah, to be totally honest with you, Mr. Lappin, I
Please
would
do.
have what I would call a minimal response. But the response I did get was I've had one person approach me about reapplying for paid on calls, and then I had 3 paid on calls state that they had a definite interest in coming back, but they were hesitant at that point in time to see what was going to happen.
That's
as far as
understandable.
so-
And so,
But
and so,
at this point, to be honest with you, I did have 2 of those people have contacted me since the board meeting the other night. One was last night, one was this morning. And they indicated an interest in, I guess, for lack of a better term, re-engaging. But that's for the rest of them that haven't contacted me, short of me tracking them down and reiterating that we either need their participation or their gear. There's been very little contact back from them.
so that to me is a critical component of what we're doing. The evidence speaks to itself that the current schedule is going to lead to burnout relatively quickly. Even you suggested that. And so the paid on call will be a critical component through this rebuilding process. So not only will I encourage you to reach out to them personally, I would, if I have the ability to mandate it, then I will mandate that you contact those people, find out what their intentions are, spin it obviously in a way that this is an effort to rebuild this organization and to rethink this organization. And in the meantime, we need strong support as we learn to live with one another once again. So I would highly encourage.
Well,
that.
and to that point, trustee Lappin, it has already been mandated. March 3rd was that list of where are the paid on calls? Where is the turnout gear? What does that function look like? And so it's already been an ask. That's actually went through ad hoc, I do believe
Yep,
as well.
yes, it did.
And we
And
still
so I
sit without
really
that
need to
knowledge.
know the outcome of that because, well, I guess I can't, there's no sense in me repeating myself, but it is critical that we understand that aspect of
Ms.
it.
Laura.
I just also wanted to point out of the 15 that are active, I mean, 3 of those are full-time.
No, when I
No.
counted I started with.
Oh,
with
you didn't
one,
count.
two.
Oh, okay, I'm
Yeah, I
sorry.
started
Never
with
mind.
these.
Never
So,
mind.
no, I did not count.
Okay, I thought you did count.
No,
Never mind.
no,
Never mind.
No, no, that's
didn't
fine.
know
And
that.
no.
Yeah.
see,
That's
I
right,
would
no.
add to kind of to reiterate what Steve said and where you guys are going with this, I'll take it one more notch and just remind everyone that as a combination department, as this department was designed, we are not a department without those paid on calls.
Right.
I not to hickory smoke it or, but I think you've heard from people other than myself. I've never brought this up, but you've probably heard from the other members is that without full-time staff, minimally, this department can't function as it is. And on the other hand, without the dedication of our paid on calls that are coming, we can't exist. It's a co-mingling and indeed we're unique among departments and is that we are combination. We have both staff and it takes the cooperation of both. So yes, I take,
That is precisely why I brought it up.
yes.
And I'm just concerned about the 4 people who for a year and a half have not responded to anything. And of those 4, 3 are firefighters. So that's some expensive equipment that was issued to them.
That is going to be, I will take, that will be incumbent upon me to however track them down and get that back, whether I can do that with a friendly knock on the door or have to employ law enforcement or whatever, but let them know this is languished. Admittedly, and needs to be taken care of and it will be
And-
pursued. But yeah, to start the rebuild of this department, yes. So.
I would like to see that take place within 2 weeks.
Like yesterday.
Yeah,
It's-
it's going on 4 months from the original ask. I think that's more than an acceptable amount of time.
Moving on with that, the only other thing I wanted to let you guys is what's going on as part of this whole, we need to get in gear and do it fast now is there are with the advent and with the, I don't know how other to say this, with kind of our mission role being redefined or specific as far as the EMS. I'll just give you an example. The brush truck is in need of a 800 radio. One needs to be put in engine 1. So probably what we'll be doing is some radio swapping with some units. Those units that we are no longer going to run frontline or run at all, we will probably take those radios and put them in our frontline equipment, make sure that everything's back up to snuff.
So right now we have that we can switch from one vehicle to another. We don't have to purchase a new 800 radio.
To my knowledge, that's correct. We've done an inventory, but we should have enough to put in all of our frontline equipment. And in the meantime, if there's a question as to how we've been doing this so far without that is just because of the nature of the beast. We've been using 800 portables as opposed to 800 mobiles in some of those units. So, and I do believe, you guys can correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe we did set enough aside in the budget and communications for purchase of some new 800s and or getting those swapped around into the rigs. So that is what I have. So what we've moved ahead with and reconciled ourselves to do within the last couple of days moving forward quickly. I'll leave it up to any more specific questions from you guys. If you have or need anything else.
Any questions of Dave?
No,
It was mentioned that there is a 2-part letter of agreement that president of the local 1859, Chris Stevens, signed as of yesterday. I signed as a witness, but it would take board action to implement. The simple, after conversation with the labor attorney, was on the bottom of both was to simply write parties agreed to extend the LOA to September 30th. And so we have not only the extension to the contract as a whole, but the second page is to the second LOA, allowing the first right of refusal to be suspended, and the other primary articles, Articles 14 and Articles 12, to allow non-unionized members to participate in the function. I'll entertain, actually, let's do them one at a time. I would entertain a motion to approve the letter of agreement between Local 1859 of the IAFF and the Charter Township of Alpena that was signed as of yesterday.
So is this one we're doing first?
Correct.
Okay. So this is to add the new
I'll
firefighter.
make that motion.
I'll support it.
This is simply a letter of agreement to extend the bargaining discussions, of which we're currently in the midst of. So some of the formation and things will be ongoing conversations. So we did have a motion. To the LOA?
Yes, trustee Kroll made the motion
Okay.
and I supported it.
Any other discussion about this LOA?
Just so I understand,
Yeah.
all this document does is push the agreement forward to September 30th.
It pushes the contract,
That's what I mean.
unamended contract.
Okay, that's.
This is just a second extension to the original extension. That
This isn't the extension. This is the one that agrees to the new firefighter.
Oh, this is to, yeah,
classification.
sorry. This is to the
And the other
firefighter,
one
and then
is-
that's the
Yeah,
extension with the
that's not-
allowance.
That is allowing
Yeah.
non-union employees to cover 24 hours.
So, thank you for the clarification. We have a motion and support on the table. Any further discussion?
Yes.
Yes, trustee
Just
Paul.
have, The attorney's approval.
Yes, this took place yesterday with personnel between trustee Kroll and clerk Plavich and myself. I subsequently then departed in a very convoluted manner to get to the south side to get the signature from Mr. Stevens. So any further discussion? If not, roll call vote, please.
Clerk Plavich, yes. Treasurer Ellery Summers.
Yes.
Trustee Kroll,
Yes.
Trustee Polly,
No.
trustee Lappin,
Yes.
Supervisor Skibby.
Yes. The second letter
I
of.
will sign this, Chris, and get you a copy.
The second letter of agreement that was clarified moments ago is to allow the setting aside of Article 8, the first right of refusal. It also allows the chief to assign assignments, responsibilities, shifts, and to where he deems reasonable and necessary to fulfill shifts as well. Article 14 of the scheduling, sections B through G are suspended until the parties agree in writing to reinstate, amend, or otherwise address the provision. And the fourth part of this LOA is pursuant to Article 12 and the medical response. The township reserves the right to discontinue the provision of extra vacation days to its discontinuance of transport services effective January 1. I'll entertain a motion to this LOA.
I'll make that motion.
I have a motion on the table. Is there support?
Support.
It's been moved and supported. Any further discussion?
The only question I have is that somewhere along the line, we may need to look at going from a BLS service to an MFR service for either a period of time or from now on. Does that have any impact on this? Would we have to retalk or renegotiate or in any way?
No, that is a
alter?
function of management.
Okay.
But I do believe we have Lizzie. Miss Mills, are you, would be Helen Mills. Can get clarification there to that question, trustee Lappin.
Okay.
Miss Mills, can you hear us?
Yes, I can. Thank you. The decision to move to MFR, if that is the board's prerogative, will be one that is management's decision. And although we would certainly want to update the contract to reflect how you're going to staff and run your department with that MFR licensure, there is no other limitation on your ability to make that decision, nor do I believe it would otherwise impact the contract terms.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for the clarification, Ms. Mills. Do we have a motion and support? Any additional discussion about the second LOA? Hearing none, roll call vote, please.
Treasurer Ellery Summers.
Yes.
Trustee Kroll,
Yes.
Trustee Reiner. Oh, sorry. Trustee Polly,
No.
Trustee Lappin.
Yes,
Clerk Palovich, yes. Supervisor Skibby.
Yes. You might as well keep,
So I think that we should look at the MFR license issue. I think that may help us to also attract more candidates. Maybe we should drop that licensure, and we can always, upgrade it down the road if that's a direction we choose. But I think that is something we should really consider to look at this point.
are you making that
I'd make the
consideration
motion
as a
that
motion?
we go to an MFR for now.
We have a motion on the table to drop our licensure from BLS non-transport to MFR. Is there support?
support.
It's been moved and supported. Further discussion?
What is the protocol to do so?
Call to the state and reporting properly. Because the inspections that and you'll correct me if I'm wrong. I believe our last round of inspections were as of January 1.
Yes,
And our current licensure under that inspection service on filing fee was for BLS non-transport.
correct.
So it would just be reconfiguring and applying through the state to drop our licensure from BLS non-transport to the MFR.
That is correct. I would have to get on the website and fill out the appropriate paperwork advising the state of that is our intention. And subsequently get contacted back with the correction in that level of licensure. So.
Follow-up question.
Yeah.
Looking downstream, and we're back where we need to be. And if this body should choose to go back to a BLS, is it a significant undertaking, or is it applying for it and making sure that we pass the necessary credentials? And it's
Yes, I see that as a subjective question, because how surmountable it is depends on where our staff is.
well,
at
that's
at
right.
that time.
Under
So,
the assumption that
but
we
if-
are back where we need to be.
yeah, if we're back to where we wanted to be, so to speak, and we had full staff, predominantly firefighter EMT. I see it as just a paperwork and having the state come in and do an inspection and then paying them the per apparatus fee for licensure is all it will entail.
All right.
Now, if we're in a position where, we need to train up, and then, yeah, that's a different.
Final question. Going to MFR, and I suppose this is more for the record more than anything else. Going to MFR does not have any negative impact with our arrangement with the county millage for ambulance ALS service?
No,
Okay, thank you.
no.
Yes.
So if we went to MFR, I think it would open up more candidates. But then we'd also need to change our job description because it's currently firefighter EMT. I mean, are we still requiring the EMT? What is our purpose of going to MFR, I guess is my question. Yeah,
I would think that we could maybe get more people in the door, if that's the direction we choose, but later on, we can always, if we're gonna put them through more training, or we change our licensure, that'll be something that be down the road, but I think that would ease our requirements to get people in the door.
So we'd have to do like another motion after this, if I understand correctly, to change our
Sure.
job
To
description,
amend the job description.
so that when we advertise, it would be, okay.
Just to make it
just
more
wanted
flexible and
to
give
make-
us some room.
And then our goal could be to eventually have everybody back up to EMT, whether we. sponsor
So,
it or
yeah,
training or
you
whatever.
can't fall off the floor.
Right.
Right.
So it's one way to look at it.
Yeah,
I would make one note, considering the last time that we looked at this and all the licensing paperwork that's filled out through Laura still has our incorrect name. Let's update our township name to the Charter Township of Alpena. But we have any other discussion? Seeing none, a roll call vote, please.
Trustee Kroll,
Yes.
trustee Polly,
Yes.
trustee Lappin.
Yes.
Clerk Palovich, yes. Treasurer Ellery Summers.
Yes.
Supervisor Skibby.
Yes. Obviously, let's just keep it linear in this regard. I'd entertain a motion at this point in time to amend the current job description from firefighter EMT to firefighter MFR.
I'll make that motion.
I'll support.
A motion and support, further discussion.
We have the necessary language that we could put in that shows that what that function is. I mean, it's going to be a relatively simple task to just update
I
it.
think we just need to update where it says EMT to MFR.
Well, there's probably some things within the BLS.
Right, the
We just have to scratch
qualification.
those off, I
Yeah.
guess. Okay, fair enough.
And then-
Roll call when, if there's no other discussion to the motion and support to the amendment of the job description. Roll call.
Trustee Polly,
Yes.
trustee Lappin.
Yes.
Clerk Palovich, yes. Treasurer Ellery Summers.
Yes.
Trustee Kroll,
Yes.
Supervisor Skibby.
Yes. Do you have something to add? Mr. Ron?
no, I just wanted to be make sure the board is aware that by dropping from basic non-transport to MFR, there will be one or two medications that we currently carry that we will no longer be able to carry as MFRs that we were able to carry as EMTs. And also, again, once we bring that back from firefighter EMT to firefighter MFR, that does open the door. I would agree and don't argue with that. But also, that also then I guess, where's, if we're MFR, then where are we gonna get I guess that will be up to me, giving people incentive to maintain or move to basic EMT to further service down the road. I mean, again, we all agree.
I
we
would
need
like
to
that
move
to be
on
our
and-
goal, is that we
Right.
get back to all EMTs.
Yeah, well, and I'll one up you. I think Podium was back there a month or two ago. I think I even advocated moving to limited advanced life support and non-transport as far as our apparatus, which is, I think, once everybody's to EMT would be easily obtainable with a minimum number of hours of instruction and stuff, and that would greatly enhance our first response capabilities when we get on scene prior to the ALS paramedics getting there. That my personal, you guys know my background. I'm paramedic forever. And so, but yeah, I would hope if that's the board's ultimate goal is we're stepping back, but we ultimately are looking down the road to growing this. But I just wanted you to be aware of those changes. So.
Go ahead.
Yes, Lauren.
If
You were
want.
first.
Well, alls I wanted, I mean, it would be our next topic of discussion that,
And then maybe,
yeah, go ahead.
so I guess when we drop down to the MFR, some education needs to go to all the EMTs, knowing what they can and cannot do now. Once we,
Correct.
Yeah,
Yeah, well,
that's-
the EMTs already will know that there's certain meds we carry that they're no longer gonna be able
Okay.
to,
and
but,
are there certain
those are-
procedures or something they can't do? Or
yeah, that's not gonna be that huge
Okay.
of a difference, because, but again, not to be redundant, but our role is we're in between, so to speak, is to get there and get the basic life support things moving, so that when the medics come in the door, we can hand off and say, here, you have X, blah, blah, blah. So it's a smoother transition rather than starting from scratch. But and again, neither here nor there, but I see, I think we've already talked before, is that you already have several paramedics on staff, and my inclination is from the people that have contacted me, you are about to have several more that want to apply here. So we're eventually, I think, going to be in a position where we have a lot of highly trained people on staff, and it'll be a matter of getting our feet back under us and getting back to EMT, and then getting to whether it's limited advance, whatever.
Just so that we're all on the right track here. Christie, it sounded like you, or looked like you kind of had some comments that you wanted to make. Yes, please. I know it's out of order, but I just
It
wanna-
was out of
Yeah,
order,
I
but
just-
as long as you know,
I wanna hear
maybe it was a
Very-
clarification of language.
I just want to
Chris
understand what he
Lyons,
has to say.
Full-time employee, and president of the union. As a worker, I don't like seeing us go backwards. I understand the need. That's the only reason I'm a head bobber, so that's why it was moving. It is, like, my only concern is like EpiPens. That's a big one for allergic reactions, bee stings, any kind of, severe asthmatic people. That's one of the medications that we'll be using with that. And then my only other concern with changing the job requirements is if you hire someone in as an MFR, you can't force them to go to another level later down the road.
So the
So
hope would be that
but
they would want to.
my hope is that as well, but
I hope the people
I
we
hope
do
that
hire
doesn't
want to
become an
continue
issue.
to better their
but
education
those are
and
my
move
only
forward.
big points there. It's just. that-
So I know I went off protocol, and I apologize for that, but I just, it's really, really important at this point that we understand that this is going to have to be a rebuilding process, and that cooperation amongst both sides is going to be essential to its success. We're going to do the very best we can, and we hope that that will translate to everyone doing the very best they can, and that we not become adversarial, and that we work toward a common goal.
That's why we're here. That's what we're here to do. And
Excellent. Thank you
made the
for that.
commitment to us. We're making the commitment back to you.
Mr. Supervisor, I apologize, but I just needed to hear.
You
something.
can't say apologize, but anyways, we'll move on. Yeah.
2 days in a row, that conversation.
Yeah, there's a lot of conversations I may or may not agree with. Yes, Miss Laura.
I would just like to make a motion that we advertise for MFR,
Firefighter, MFR.
firefighter MFR, full-time and paid on call. And do it on Indeed. I don't know if we would do the Alpena News or do any of the trade magazines or reach out to the,
Well, Chris
Is it the
Stevens spoke to me that the union has different places that they will advertise
Okay.
it for free if we give them the ad and stuff. So I think
So
we
for
should
sure.
do.
Indeed, do you think the Alpena News or?
So, well, there may be somebody here that would support that. I think that that's not very cost effective. Because
I mean,
if they're
we
if they're a local person,
Right.
they're already gonna know.
Right.
So,
So then my motion will be Indeed and
The free
the
free
free
trade and
trade,
union.
right, contacts.
Free trade. And union.
And for, do you think 5 days is sufficient or
Indeed, I think you want to get a week maybe.
so 7 days or?
I think clerk can figure that out, right? We just,
Yeah.
You know
Well-
what? We can do it for 7 days. If we're not getting responses, we can,
Shorten it, okay.
well.
Or
add it.
add it,
Increase
Yeah.
it. Yeah.
I would just implore
Gotcha.
that let's make sure that we're done with the advertisement when we're done, so
I've
that
got
we
that
don't.
down pat.
Okay, I know that you do. So we have a motion on the table to move forward with advertising. Is there
I'll
support?
support.
Any further discussion?
Yeah, I would also encourage that this advertising include communications with applicable universities that have the appropriate training schooling.
Okay. So is that a friendly amendment to Laura's?
That'd be an ask of a friendly. Are you willing to
Yep,
make
That's perfectly fine.
a friendly amendment and
And I
to the
will
support?
support that.
Everybody's friendly. Wonderful. Any discussion, further discussion? Seeing none, roll call, please.
Trustee Polly,
Yes.
trustee Lappin,
Yes,
clerk Palovich, yes. Treasurer Ellery Summers.
Yes.
Trustee Kroll,
Yes.
Supervisor Skibby.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, Miss.
I would like to also make a motion that we establish a task force to consist of trustee Kroll being the chair, trustee Lappin, and clerk Michelle Palovich. And I would be happy to be an alternate if need be.
Was that as a motion?
Yes.
What is it? Yeah, what is
Yeah,
its
oh,
purpose?
the task
Because we've, if
force,
we've
the-
learned anything,
It's
it's to define. a
Well, it would
purpose.
be, okay, a task force to work on the rebuild of the fire department. I mean, we, you know, if the contract would have went forward with the city, there would have been a task force as part of that to work together. And I think that this task force needs to work with the fire department, you know, the chief paid on calls, just to keep things moving in a positive direction and
Foster
communication and. Don't any more than that.
I don't, that should suffice.
I guess,
I mean, is it into perpetuity? I mean, I don't, there are,
Well,
No.
to me.
What is its
no,
definition?
Till, I mean, when we formed the fire department ad hoc committee, I mean, that went until it.
no longer was needed.
Right, so I mean, I think it's gonna, this would.
Eventually wear itself out.
Right,
I think maybe it could be a pass through from the board to the fire department, bouncing ideas, things like that. Restoring our communication,
And
trust. And maybe we look at our future plans, short-term plans, long-term plans, if that goes that direction. It's a perfect avenue, I think, to explore that.
because that would also be part of the personnel committee, which will be going and is currently engaged in, well, now that we have an LOA, but we are still engaged in contract negotiations, so. We have a motion. Was there support to that? I don't think there was.
I'll support it,
Cash
just to move it
Cash
forward.
supported.
Josh supported, but do you have further discussion?
Yeah, I think that although I like the idea of a task force, I don't know if I like the name of it, but it doesn't, that's immaterial. I think that we need to, there may very well be times where we get into a situation where we need to be cognizant of the fact that it may be a personnel issue, or it may be a function of some other department that we would have to defer those things to, because as with the ad hoc committee, we did find ourselves sort of blurring the lines as to where we needed to be or what our purpose was. I would see this group as a group of people that would, to some extent, act as a cheerleader, and like, as you said, Cash, to improve communication and rebuild trust and those sorts of things, because it'll get bumpy along the way. I'm reasonably confident, but most things that have a good purpose will. And so just so long as we don't step outside our role, I guess, and right now the role is going to be a little bit hard to define, except to say that we don't go outside the scope or step on some of the committee's toes.
I guess I would like to define the task.
Me too.
I wholeheartedly.
Very much so, because I
wholeheartedly
feel like
agree,
that's
because-
where we went wrong with the ad hoc committee, that we did not have a definite, clear purpose,
Mm.
and waters got muddied and
So
What
to
do you have in mind, I guess?
Well, yeah.
communication, trust.
what I just wrote down here is work to rebuild trust and foster communication, because we know that communication between the board and the fire department has been it's a big weakness.
Yes.
So I think rebuilding communication in itself will build trust. So I think maybe that should be,
Yeah, it would be nice to have a, I guess for want of a better phrase, a mission statement.
yeah.
To work from and to focus in on.
Mhm.
Trustee Polly,
Maybe put in there, come up with a plan.
that'd be, well, I mean, and that's gonna be that's the layer cake that we're talking about, because right now, we don't have a defined plan. We heard today that there's the need to hire 2 officers, paid on call, but that's gonna be a part of the negotiations. And then there's also in this task force is this task force, and if it is, then I'm fine with it. In our layout as a charter township, does this task force supersede my oversight as department head? And
No.
if so, I mean, because that's,
No, no, no,
how do we
I-
bridge that communication
I,
as well?
I think we should consider this as an advisory sort of board and that and solely as an advisory board. And
Well,
to,
all committees are.
yeah, but I mean,
So-
not to, again, not to step on toes of any either committee or person of authority, but not to do that. But
I think the more conversation we have here at this table, and when we walk away, that we're all on that same page,
yeah,
it's only gonna,
I think it may be more of a supplemental tool to just make sure that we're staying on course. We're having communication.
And-
so we
and
don't
I-
have
Is it a-
failure.
To
Yeah,
meet
change it.
between board meetings, to make sure that the board and the fire department are on the same page between the 2 weeks of meetings. Is-
Yeah.
That's what I'm looking at it.
and I can envision this sort of a task force being in place to offer the public accurate information, maybe to discuss issues that will no doubt come up. And I know we don't necessarily like to talk about it, but if we do feel that at some point in time that we need to reach out to the taxpayer to help foot the bill for services that we can't afford to provide now, then that may be part of the discussion that this task force has. And how do we provide that information to the taxpayer? Can it be a combination of the board of trustees?
I feel that would be a bridge back to the board. It would
Well, yeah,
never,
yeah.
it would never be a,
Oh,
yeah,
no,
that
but I mean-
tool
But I mean,
as a communications gathering information machine
but.
to come back to here as it would stand to be a communication bridge to the general public from the
Oh.
fire department. That would be that one.
Yeah, no,
Yeah,
no.
yeah.
I
Just wanna
agree.
make sure
Just
that
to establish, as Norman mentioned, a plan.
Yeah.
How do we get from point A to point B?
Yeah, because that would be, I think that's what we'd all like to see
Right.
is a plan, because
Short-term plan.
here,
long-term plan.
here we are, you know, after a vote. And we need a plan. So time is of the essence, and everybody's gonna be having to fire on all cylinders.
I guess
So
I'm
did-
not
yeah.
still really sure what the motion is. I mean, to establish an advisory task force consisting of trustee Lappin, trustee Kroll, myself, Laura as an alternative, to foster communication, build trust, to recommend planning, short-term and long-term plans to the board.
As long as we're all in agreement, I just wanted,
That's a pretty significant catch-all, and I think that seems like a reasonable motion. And I
Okay.
suppose if it morphs, then we bring it back to the board and amend
Oh,
it
I'm
again.
sorry.
Who were the members on
I
that?
just went ignored it.
it's okay. I'm sitting between 2 people that forgot Robert's rules of order.
Sorry.
Trustee Kroll would be the chair. Trustee Lappin, Clerk Plavich, and I could be an alternate.
I think that's a wonderful idea. That's the majority vote, that this is a direction. So I think that's a wonderful way to foster that communication. I just want to, I think I wholeheartedly agree with Clerk Palovich of defining the
I
role,
think any
because
committees
that was an
are-
egregious failure of a previous committee, I feel. So, okay, are we good with the intent and the language? We have is that a friend, are you friendly
Yes,
to that
that's-
amendment?
yes.
Okay,
Are you-
and do we have support?
I'm friendly to that.
You're
Oh, wait,
friendly.
no,
No,
Kroll.
Cash.
Are you
Cash.
friendly
Yes.
to
That
the
was the other one.
changes? Any further discussion? Hearing none. Well, there would be a cost, so roll call, please.
Trustee Lappin,
Yes.
Clerk Plavich, yes. Treasurer Ellery Summers.
Yes.
Trustee Kroll,
Yes.
Trustee Polly,
Yes.
Supervisor Skibby.
Yes. Is there any other items of business?
When do we want to establish this first task force meeting?
Sooner the better,
I would agree.
given consideration that
You're the chair.
we don't have a plan, so. And those would be here in the boardroom?
In the boardroom, yeah. We could shoot for either tomorrow morning or that'd be Friday afternoon.
I guess, I mean,
Friday would be, Friday, what time though?
Well, I have meetings that are at least, I think I only have the one, so it's only gonna go till 10. So we can do after 10 to noon even in the morning if you want, or we can go after lunch.
I prefer that morning gig when I'm bright-eyed.
Like what time?
What,
I'm here every day at 7, so whatever works. I don't
I'm
have
not
anything
that
scheduled that day.
I'm bright-eyed at 7.
Well,
I have a meeting at 8:30, so.
Well, the sooner the better, as far as I'm concerned. If we do it Friday, if 10 o'clock is available, if that's what you say, then that's good for me.
Is that all right?
that's fine with me. I'm here all day.
We'll shoot for that.
So
10 a.m.
At 10 a.m. here.
July 2nd.
I know the fire department will be a part of the first meeting
Yes.
as well.
Who in the fire department?
Yeah.
Will be part of that meeting.
Well, definitely the chief and if he wants to bring any other representatives. Like I said, we just want to foster communication so we don't.
I would implore the committee to give the commitment to Mr. Muggy as a representative of
Yep.
paid on call.
Okay.
Thank
That'd
you,
be
sir.
great.
We have nobody on the fire department. On that question.
Okay. Any other business items to the purpose of this meeting? I did notice after we did, but I will, there isn't a second public comment on this agenda. I just noticed, but if there is no business. item-
I just had a couple questions. And they're really for the chief. I just kind of wrote down a couple notes. The SOPs and the SOGs, I mean, are those like complete and done, or is that like a work in progress?
Work in progress.
Okay,
I have, yeah, I have templated, actually, I reached out to people on the inside are gonna get this when I say oddly enough, I reached out to the MTA. Because traditionally they're at that, but I reached out to the MTA for templates for what they consider usual and customary guide templates for guidelines for SOPs and SOGs for departments. In particular in the state of Michigan, I do have those. I have them on file and I will say several completed. The rest will have to be a work in progress where we finish publishing them, so to speak, and then I bring them to the board for approval.
So
After
it
you've
would be
read them
kind of
and
nice, I mean, like, through this process to, provide us or what, I mean, what is done so far,
yeah,
and just get them, just to know where we're at.
I can put that on my thing for the first
Yeah.
meeting. I can introduce to you guys what we already have done, what's in progress and what needs to be done. Yeah,
Okay. And who is our training officer? Do we have a training officer?
right now that would be me.
Okay. Who is the code enforcement official?
That would be me.
Okay. And 2 certified fire investigators.
That would be myself and Chris Stevens.
Okay. And 2 state certified fire instructors.
That would be myself, and you don't have the instructor. No. You'll have to give me a minute for the second one, but I have,
I was just
I've been
curious.
for
of
forever, so.
Who the, you know, who filled those roles.
On full-time staff, that would be me. I do know that Tom has held instructor, and so I have several other members on the department hold fire instructor qualifications.
But state
not on the
certified
full-time.
fire instructors.
Yes.
It would be you.
Yes.
Okay. So we have 1, possibly 2.
Yeah, well, I would say possibly 3 or 4, but as far as full-time staff, myself.
Okay.
So,
All right, thank you.
Dave, just a quick question on the SOPs. The insurance provider through the fire and EMS committee provides those. Remember, I'd sent those off, or the link, I guess. I can't remember what it was, the link or the disc. I have the discs in my office, but I know that we do them a little bit differently now.
yes,
But through our risk control.
yes.
Okay. That's sort of a plug and play. Those are uniformed SOPs.
Through the park
Right.
plan.
it-
Yeah.
Yes, and what Steve is talking about also are templated so that it actually would be a matter of making the document, I want to say, unique to Charter Township of
Yeah.
Alpena as
It would
far
be
as
a
letterhead
it would
and
be a
stuff,
Word document.
than having the board review it and approve it, sign it, and put it into play as an SOP or SOG.
Yeah.
So just a point of clarification, because we've been a fire department for over 50 years. We don't currently have SOPs and SOGs in place.
There are a limited number of SOPs and SOGs in place, but again, being a very small rural department in northern Michigan, they are published in there in a notebook, but it's not like voluminous as it should be. The last time, I'm going to stick my foot in my mouth here, but the last time there was what I call them, an auditor from MTA Insurance Services, whatever. They looked at that and they saw that as one of the shortcomings of the department as a whole, is that we had some, but we didn't have a complete set recommendation. And they left their card, reached out to them, and they sent, and as well, Steve has provided templates. So yes, we can move ahead
that'd be
with
great.
that.
Literally
Trustee
just change
Foley.
the name.
So. Mr. Polly.
Trustee Polly had his hand up, and then
For the benefit of the people that are listening, could you explain what an SOG is and an SOP?
SOP is a standard operating procedure, and SOG would be a guideline. And I guess from an instructor's point of view, the best way to describe the difference of them is a guideline is where I would instruct the department. They're expected to respond to, say, a PI accident in a certain manner with a certain number of equipment. A procedure would be defining to them, it's the difference between saying go from point A to point B and then saying go from point A to point B, but don't cross any lines, don't use a red crayon. That's the difference between procedure and guideline. So.
okay.
My question is more for Steve. Having SOPs and SOGs in place, does that affect our rates or anything for
Doesn't
insurance?
really affect our rates. It's part of it's just part of the fire and EMS committee that years and years ago, basically for the same reason Chief mentioned, that a lot of rural fire departments just don't have the manpower or the ability to do these
Right.
SOGs and SOPs. And so it made sense from our perspective to put those in place so that there's commonality across all of our clients that essentially utilize the same drafted program through lawyers and so on.
So basically, we could download these from the power plant and within a month have it in place?
Probably within an hour.
Okay.
So
I
I
I
mean,
think we
I
need to have
don't
a-
want to comment, because if we've been a part of 50 years of a department and we can do something in an hour, it doesn't look great.
I feel
So
like we need
let's-
to have a goal to get these in
So
place.
that can be, that can
Yeah.
absolutely be a topic of Friday's conversation.
Okay. Yeah.
And now I've learned on word processing that you don't have to go through each and every
You can
line.
replace and find feature. and It's like, boom, it's updated. the
Who
whole
knew?
plan. Yeah, I use it a lot. So,
It's a wonderful tool.
Yeah, just the only thing I would add for both audience and board, and I'm not trying to
Mr.
be
Stevens?
redundant or condescending, but what we're should aim for is what we're talking about when we say SOPs and SOGs is we're really looking for a manual on best practices.
and I would think that's what you would get from
That's-
power plants.
Yeah, and
best
so I
practices.
don't disagree, Dave, that just because the template is available, that it doesn't mean that there are some unique aspects like the fact that we have both paid and paid on call would probably have some amendments to that agreement. But I
Yes.
would say that 95% of that agreement would be complete and that it would just need to be tweaked a little bit. Yeah, I'm not suggesting that that would be the catch-all, but I am saying that it is a mostly complete document.
No, and again, we're on the same page. The reason they publish those is so that departments like this can take the better portion or the best practices of those documents and make them more closely mirror how our department's going to respond. So.
Thank you.
Is there any other actionable items? Otherwise, this would be a second opportunity for public comment. If there is any public comment, please stand at the podium, state your name for the record. We do not need your address. 3 minutes, sir, but if asked for an extension, I may be able to grant that.
Thank you, sir. My name is Bert Francisco. I'm a township resident, and I'm a concerned resident, quite frankly. In approximately 12 hours, as I understand it, the support from the Alpena Fire Department will terminate in less than 12 hours. And I have to say that today's meeting does not instill confidence that the Alpena Township Fire Department is prepared to provide immediate and sustained adequate support and service to its citizens. And where I get that feeling from is from the discussion today. I've heard statements as, we don't have a plan at this time. We hope we'll get people that'll be willing to apply for positions, and we hope that they will go from an EMT certification down to an MFR certification. We have SOPs and SOGs that we can download within an hour. Well, that's good for audits, but it's not. SOPs and SOGs, based upon my experience in the military, is how you operate and our guidelines for how you operate. And we're still kind of working on how we're going to satisfy that requirement. I've heard that we have some discrepancies with paid on call. We have approximately 3 full-time people, 4 including the chief, Chief, you need to bubble wrap yourself because you are a one-man band, as far as I can tell. You have all the institutional knowledge and operations, and you do most everything. And unfortunately, you have had no opportunity to delegate. So do not get hurt. Do not become a casualty in any way, shape, or form for a number of reasons, but particularly because you carry the load. And that is a concern. I've heard discussions not only on personnel, but equipment. And again, I'm not all sure about mission capability of the equipment, but I hear engine 1 may or may not be fully mission capable. Engine 3 may or may not be fully mission capable. And in less than 12 hours, as I understand it, Alpena Township Fire Department is supposed to be required to take on the full responsibility as the fire department from the city of Alpena. That support for fire services, it ends. I also hear and have read that additionally, to become fully functioning as a fire department, the $500,000 plus $1,000 millage in the 2 villages is not adequate. That we need somewhere in the field of $800,000, and we're going to have to go back to the taxpayers for that extra $300,000 and hope. I've heard hope a number of times. Hope that we can then have a fully rebuilt fire department sometime in the future. Again, the future is now. It's in 12 hours. So to conclude my comments, again, I'm not, as a concerned citizen, I'm not confident that the Alpena Township Fire Department will provide fire service to me and my neighbors on the south end of Long Lake, the north part of Alpena Township as of midnight tonight. That concerns me. And again, I have a military background. A number of years ago, there was a gentleman named General Gordon Sullivan. He wrote a book, Hope is Not a Method. I've read the book a number of times. Unfortunately, I agree, hope is not a method, but I do hear in the terms of being trying and hope being utilized by this board today in reference to our future Alpena Township Fire Department. Thank you for your time today. Thank you for your service to the community. Being an elected official is certainly sometimes a labor of love because it is difficult. And I know that in some cases, not a lot of people looking for your jobs because people don't want to step up and provide that type of community service. So I thank all of you for your willingness to do so.
Thank you for your comments, Mr. Francisco. Anyone else for public comment? Is there anybody online? Haley, I did notice that there was one comment that was typed in. Yes, well,
Do we know
I
who
can
it's
read
from?
it. Do you know who it's from? Tanya Roos. There certainly is a shortage of EMTs and paramedics in the area. The difficulty with MFRs progressing their education is that there are few EMT courses available in the area and many cannot travel due to full-time jobs. Just something to think about. Would the township sponsor the MFRs to advance their education? Well, the historic response to that is that we always have upon completion or if that educational advancement is a failure, if you would, then the individual themselves would be responsible for repayment. That's how it's always gone in the time that we've been here. Are there anybody else online?
Ross was on there.
Well, yeah, and to Mr. Trustee Reinhardt, I would just say, if you would like to speak, you're more than welcome. I did print off your email and distribute that to all of the trustees. But Trustee Reinhardt, if you'd like to add any comments to this meeting?
All I'd have to say is that my comments, I think, are sufficient. In writing, and I really, of course, agree with General Francisco that we've got a long way to go. That's all I have.
Thank you for your comments. Trustee Reinhardt, safe travels and condolences. Last opportunity for public comment in person. Last opportunity for public comment online. Seeing and hearing none, move forward to discussion amongst the board. I had been reached out by several residents that echoed very similar concerns that Mr. Francisco has presented to this board today. And I said that I would make the ask on behalf of them. And that ask is to, and it's always everybody's choice. That's the good, the bad, and the ugly of township boards. We are all one vote. But the ask was for the 4 trustees that voted to not go with the city. What was the reason for making that decision? If you choose to answer, that's your call. But that was an ask of a resident. So I figured I'd do my due diligence and pass that ask along.
So I just have had a couple issues with it. One, cost. I think when you add in all the extra costs, we're not really saving ourselves that much money. I had some issues with language in the agreement. And I feel it's our obligation to provide the best service we can. And I think it should be up to the people if they want to pay more or do not. I think it should be decided at a ballot box and not here. So that's my thoughts. I'm taking for what it is, but that's where I'm coming from.
Appreciate the comments,
I
Trustee.
made my comments at the last board meeting, and mine was a strictly contract language. I made it clear to the city folks that they did an outstanding job and that came to us at a time when we really needed it. But the two areas of the contract that bothered me were the words that I wanted to have deleted, that being or ensure, and then the deleting of even if the millage didn't pass, we would still have an obligation. If I looked at that in a negative way, that if the voters turned down the millage, more than 100% of our general fund would be going to the city for services of the fire department, effectively rendering the township broke. You guys wouldn't be paid, I wouldn't be paid, assessors wouldn't be paid, nobody'd be paid, and no roads would be done, none of that stuff. And so that was a problem for me.
Thank you for your comments, trustee Lappin.
One of my main reasons was voting it down was the term. I didn't like getting it back into another 10-year term. I also felt like we did need to give it another shot and rebuild the fire department, because some of the problems are owned by this board for not taking action in a timely manner.
Thank you for your comments, Clerk Palovas.
I feel like I explained too at the last meeting, what my reasoning was. One part of the contract I didn't care for was that it was a 5-year, and then an out would be, you'd have to give notification, which would extend that another 5 years. So the agreement would have been 10 years minimum. And also, I just feel that if we can establish trust between our township board and our township fire department, I mean, we can build, we can be proud, but we need dedication on both sides.
Yes, Clerk Palovas.
I just have one more thing to say, is that comments were made that some votes were on emotion. And there was very little emotion on this vote. We've been dealing with this subject for 7-8 months now. No one is aware of how many hours beyond the ad hoc committee that members of this board put into researching, doing our homework, finding out information. It was not an easy choice. It weighed heavily on all of us for a very long time.
Thank you for, I said that I'd pass that along, so I do appreciate it.
I would like to make a comment too. I have heard from, several people as well that it was the right decision.
But
And
a
I
few
just-
thank yous too,
Yes.
people calling.
This is discussion amongst the board, unfortunately, right now. So, but if there's no other discussion, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll make that motion.
We have a motion to adjourn. We have support. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of adjournment signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Meeting adjourned at 12:24.
Looking around like.